Hi, I'm James Naylor Green, professor of Brazilian history and culture at Brown University and the national co-coordinator of the U.S. Network for Democracy in Brazil. This program is supported by the Washington Brazil office. This is Brazil Unfiltered. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Vera Paiva. She's a full professor in the Department of Social Psychology at the University of São Paulo, where she has taught since 1987. She is dedicated to psychosocial approaches to inequality and sexuality and to the innovation of health practices, prevention, and care based on human rights, with an emphasis on STDs, AIDS, and COVID-19. She has extensive collaborations with AIDS programs nationally and at the state and municipal level, and with COVID-19 response networks. She is also a researcher at the Institute of Advanced Studies at the University of São Paulo. In addition to all of this, she's the eldest daughter of Rubens Paiva, a Brazilian engineer and politician who was tortured and murdered by the Brazilian military dictatorship in 1971. Vera has been a relentless activist for human rights, and among many roles she has played over the years, as a member of the Special Commission about Murdered and Disappeared Political Activists representing civil society. Her family's life story is the subject of a feature film, Ainda Estou Aqui, I'm Still Here, a current box office hit in Brazil, and has been nominated for two 2025 Golden Globes Awards for Best Screenplay and for Best Actress with Fernando Torres. Vera, welcome to Brazil Unfiltered.
Yes, I'm very glad to be here.
So, Vera, how is the Paivas family's participation in the making of the film I'm Still Here? How did that go? Tell us the story.
Yes, Marcelo, who is my brother, who is a quite bestseller writer in Brazil and also write plays and scripts for movies. He's as we call him, a multimedia guy, right? He wrote when my mother began giving signs of her Alzheimer, right? He's the only son. We are four girls and one boy, as we would say in our family. And the way he coped, I think, with the loss of the mother we knew, right, which is very hard. Many of you may have know somebody who with the same process, right? And of losing her to the Alzheimer in an old age already. She was 75 when she was diagnosed, was to write a book about her. He realized that even if my father was the assassinated person, that disappeared, the body was never give to our family to do the full process of mourning and etc., which is a human right, a basic human right. And he was known as the hero. He realized in a way that she was the real hero. As we know about many families in Brazil, when the women that takes the care, the fight, and represent the resistance, really day by day resistance after, and take care of the kids, take care, right? Cope with violence in the family with boys and girls, which still going on in the family, mostly boys, black boys mostly, black families mostly, or the indigenous people mostly, which is a terrible moment in Brazil with that, right? And he realized and decided to write about her. Marcelo decided to write about her and wrote a wonderful book, which is called Ainda Estou Aqui, which is a phrase that she said one day in our family reunion lunch with my house, as my father's house is always full of people, right? You've been here, probably you saw it. I'm not sure, but you know the way we are. And then and he picked her phrase when we were talking. Our family lunches are like, we talk about a lot of politics, but we do discuss a lot, fight a lot. This is a traditional Italian politicized, oriundi Italianos, politicized family. We fight. It's a funny, and love to participate. But as a person with Alzheimer, as you know, people can follow, right? It's too quick, and she was in that phase. So she but puts her hand on the table. Wow, stop, para. Eu ainda estou aqui. I'm still here. Don't ignore me. Right? And this is a brilliant synthesis, I think, of her state, her story, and now everybody says, I'm still here. All the movement of people that were forgotten, that we didn't talk about, a lot. It's not only the 1,500 people that are registered in the book of disappeared people. We always said, my mother said, I said, that it's much more people than that, right? But we cannot stop fighting for democracy, fighting for truth and memory, truth and reparation, right? We are still here. So it's a perfect synthesis of her fight, her struggle, that the film's half of the film shows, or more or less, and also the struggle of everybody else in Brazil, and mostly women, right? Every year since the dictator was on, there is a massacre of dezenas, many people usually poor communities and non-white communities, and the mothers are there fighting for the truth, the right reparation and memory of her kids, her brother, husband, whatever, right? So we are still here.
What was it like to relive the story of your father's disappearance and the tragedy that the family had trying to find his whereabouts and never knowing that? How did that feel to relive that experience as you were involved in
Yes.
the movie process?
Yeah. As in development, we did, Marcelo wrote the book, right? Which is a wonderful book. It's well documented also with the laws, with the goes and come, everything that happened during the process, right? Which is very well documented. But the filmmakers, the script makers, Walter Moreira Salles, who knew our family, I don't know if you know that, he was a neighbor in the house that appears in the movie, right? And he was part of the big party, big socialization place that was my house, my family house, right? So when he read the book, he decided to make the film first, and then he immediately, right? He was like, I want to do that. And I think it would be the only person that Marcelo would give the book to be filmed, because he really is, we know his filmmaking history, the way he's delicado, how to say?
Very delicate and very precise.
Delicate, respectful. We know the quality of the film, and we know he knew us. He was part of that house, for many of his childhood. He's the age of my third sister, which is Ana Lu, right? Very friend. We have pictures of him dancing the parties we had. And so they also had the book, and to incarnate is that English embody the film. They interview all of us, right? Deeply. And they saw letters, they saw pictures. And this is when we decided, yes, okay, we are open up, more details, everything, every one of us, in a way. We are five, right? Not only Marcelo, but then our input to embody it of the characters that he puts in the film. So this was part of the process, very long. So it was interesting. All the things of my mother are with me. I'm the oldest, right, child. And I got her, how to say, archives, and with photos, all the process, every single thing, news in the newspapers, every single thing she did. as a lawyer because she became a lawyer, and so on. It was there. We open up everything and they use it, right? So this was it, to give the input for them, for the film team, let's say. Even that, like the house, for example, is like we were quite impressed at how good they reconstructed the house, the same house, right? It's not there anymore, but they found the same similar house in Urca, right? Done by the same architect and transform and make it again appear. It's like when we looked at the final, it was very impressive, right? So this is one piece of the contribution of the family, right, to make it real, right? The second is how we individually reacted to the film. I was 17, right? The oldest. I was not in the scene, the first scene, the crime scene, the kidnapping and arresting of my father. I was not there. I was in London. The film says that. I was sent to London to study English and to take me out of the scene. They were a little worried about I was a politicized. You go and see the film, right? So I was there at Fernando Gasparian house, an exiled industry leader. He was a businessman. He was presidente da Fiesp, Federação Internacional das Indústrias de São Paulo, power man, but was that kind of bourgeoisie that we don't have anymore, which is burguesia nacional, right? That had a plan to Brazil, like Mingling, like many others, businessmen, industrial businessmen mainly, right? So he was exiled in London. I went there and I was there. So I didn't see the crime scene. My father being arrested, my house being invaded, my mother being arrested the second day, then my sister was 15 years old. The next day, my boyfriend that went there, didn't know anything, was arrested too, and tortured and everything. Never say a word, but I was in London. So this was my impression. I saw the film from this position, and then coming back, the film showed me coming back. Everybody was very afraid that it was coming back and being arrested, because my sister, with 15 years old, was arrested in Doikod, was a torture center. So I saw from this film. My sister, my second sister, saw from the story that she lived. She was arrested with my mother. She was at Doikod, and had an impact on her, and so. So it was everybody. My little sister was 10, so she doesn't remember everything. It's right. Marcelo was 11 in this crime scene, let's say, right? So the most interesting thing for us was to see my kids' reaction, right? The kids of Marcelo, the kids of Nalu reaction. The kids of Marcelo haven't seen the movie yet. They're too small, right? But a little bit, right? Because they didn't know their grandfather. They knew the grandmother, right? Some with the Alzheimer already, some or before the Alzheimer. My kids know her before the Alzheimer. They were very little, but they remember her until, right? For the first, before teenage times, right? So, and it was interesting because I have given many interviews about him during the process of which is in the internet. And as the film has been seen by 2,500,000 people all over Brazil.
And
Yes.
did you expect the popularity of the movie?
No, never, right? It's a great film. The film it's a great film. You need to go and see, right? So until the last time I saw it was last weekend, 2,500,000 people in Brazil, all over Brazil, even small cities from north to south, full sessions. It's a movement, social movement, right? It's very impressive, right?
And what will be the impact, do you think, of the movie on debates about human rights, the legacy of the dictatorship, this story in Brazil's past?
Huge, huge, huge. So what my impression is, so at some moment I decided just to defend myself, I'm a caring person. I take care of the others to take care of me, like I am, right? You know me. So I usually, the way to cure me, right, is to taking care of others, right? And then there's a lot of people who does that. I decided to step back and begin to put in a doc every reaction I got, right? Through WhatsApp, through email, people calling me, meeting people. I became a celebrity. People, because I was at I gave interviews on Serginho Groisman on a Saturday night. It was, everybody saw me and they recognized me in the street, right? And many of the things, because of the movie, people take and make it how to say 1 million views of myself, 1,200,000 views of me describing my father, right? For example, it's a crazy thing, right, for us. But I mean, I'm there, Marcel is there, my sisters are there, and then for example, again with the reaction of the grandsons and daughters of Rubens and Eunice, my father and my mother, right? They saw me in an old video talking about my father. And I say, he was very funny. He was light. We went to the movie with him. Even when I went to my boyfriend, I knew he was there, Cinema Leblon, which is a very typical one. I didn't know he was there, but we knew he was there because of his laughing, very loud. And this was my father. And amoroso, the relations with my mother, it was very, very strong and visible. They kiss each other, they dance in the house with Bossa Nova and Beatles. He decided to understand the Beatlemania. So this was my father, right? In the beach and everything. And then the grandkids begin to learn, and then they decided that, okay, so Celto Melo is really like my grandfather. So there was a discussion a month ago among them in a family Zoom and discussion on the Zap. The most significant thing for them is to know their grandfather. They didn't know him. They only had photos, right? Okay. And so can you see? So depends on the place you are. Our family puts themselves reacting to the film in a way, and the viewers, this is my ethnography of the viewers, right, and the reactions, identify with one character in the first half an hour of film when the family is all there, and goes through the story. That's my impression. Identified with somebody, the mother, the kid, the little kid, the teenager, as I was, the two teenagers, right? And it's very powerful. It's like a psychodrama for everybody, and for people who were affected by the dictatorship. I tell you one story. Yesterday, I met a person that works at the university that I know very well, and Veroca, I want to keep. I love the film. I went 2 times. First, me and that. Second, more people. Third, the whole family, right? Because my grandfather for some time was a disappeared rural worker. He was resisted some of the authoritarian way of trying to make people slaves still, right? This was the 60s. We didn't have slavery, but Black people were treated like slaves in the rural area. He answered, and he disappeared. Another guy on a horse find him, right? De cabeça para baixo, preso. How to say that?
He was hanged upside down.
upside down and broken, legs broken, right? And broken all over. He was taken down, taken care by this guy who found him. And after that, he disappeared from our family because he was afraid to bring the danger to our family. We thought he was dead, right? And then many years after that, he came back home. This is a person that I know forever working, you see. So this is the impact of the film, you see.
But how do you explain today, in this moment? I mean, Walter Salles is an excellent filmmaker. He won an Academy Award for Central do Brasil, Central Station. So you had a really wonderful director. But how do you explain this boom in interest in the question at this very moment? What's happening in Brazil that's eliciting such a big response? 2.8 million people or 2.5 million people for a Brazilian movie on a political theme, historical theme is very unusual. It's an
Right.
amazing number of people. So how do you explain that?
No, I think the there was a who. Marcelo is a famous author, right? There is a whole generation, not the young now, but who was during the 90s was right to learn about the dictatorship through his books too, right? So this generation was paying attention, right? But then we had Bolsonaro's government, right, which is a fascist, right? Bolsonaro voted to impeach Dilma. You remember that? Dedicating his vote to the symbol of torture, the symbol of fascism of all this period of dictatorship, right? So we had Bolsonaro, which did not only neglected any death, I mean, doesn't mind the COVID moment, but also tried to make a coup, to realize a coup and resist to Lula's election, right? And now we know this is more recent than the explosion of the film, right? This is quite recent, right? Uh, very recent revelations from the federal police is that they plotted
Yeah.
to kill the president, the Supreme Court president, and the vice president. And their detailed plans to do that, right? Just after Lula was elected, right? And we had the resistance when they suspected the extreme right, represented by Bolsonaro and militaries and so on. They had plans, right? They understood that Lula could win. They put Lula in prison for a long time. I mean, the right, and then part of this right regretted, right? Understand that this was wrong, right? But anyway, there is this to make a 6th January in Brazil. It was the 8th January of Brazil, quite connected, we should say, and quite deeply connected, right? The Bolsonaros are friends with Trump people, right? And so quite connected. So, and
Vera, as you know, the Washington Brazil office was very involved in
I know,
fighting against the possibility of a coup and defending democracy, including bringing representatives from 20 civil society organizations to Washington, D.C. in July
I
of
know. And
2020.
it's a very important, very, very important
The,
work.
the question to me has to do with Brazil's legacy and the amnesty law of 1979. Could you talk a little about what that was about and why that's part of the reason that we're still facing these problems in Brazil today?
Yes, when I fought for amnesty too, right? Because we fought to give amnesty to make people who were exiled come back to Brazil, to people who were in prison after being tortured and living in prison for a long, long way with long sentences, with let's say not no justice was done with them. I mean, they were punished for resisting the dictatorship and were in prisons, right? And my generation fought for amnesty to take them out of prisons and bring people back to the country who were exiled and so on. But the amnesty that was possible at that time, right? It was a double face amnesty, which means, okay, we pardon, we liberate we from the prisons and all the punished people who fought against dictatorship, but we do not go through the to making justice or put the torturers, the dictators, the machine of the dictatorship, illegal and clandestine and even legal, on court, right? And so that's what we did. And the politicians who accepted that in the Congress at that time, that was a Congress that was not directly elected. There's a piece of the Congress, 30% of the Congress was indicated by the dictators. You remember that, right?
Oh.
Remember that?
Senadores biónicos.
Yeah, exactly, right? So there was a Congress that accepted even the right in the Congress to go towards democracy. But the democracy was established in 88 with the new constitution. It was a long process of a movement to build a new constitution based on human rights. We didn't have that. We were doing all of that with the laws and the context, the juridical, how to say that, the judicial juridical context of the dictatorships. So that was the possible amnesty. So we claim, the ones who are still here, right, fighting for that since then, and the ones who came on board after understanding that the police violence, there is a military police, there is a civil police in Brazil, and a military police that was invented, designed in 68 when the coup got worse, right? When just after my father was the killing, the torture, radicalized, right? And we have this military police keeps killing people, torturing people, and the dates, the data, how to say, the data we have from last year, right? Or since Lula won, or since just before they understood Lula could win, right? 2022, right? They became crazy. They are killing people for nothing everywhere, right? Nothing. We had the scene on TV last week that a guy on a moto, his moto, a black guy in a moto, his moto, was persecuted by police. In some moment, he was so scared to be killed. You know what I mean? Because that's what they do. They just murder and kill people like that. They, without stopping them, inquiring them, making right. There was nothing against that. He just leave the moto and began to run just to not to be killed. Right? They took this guy, spanked him, destroy his and threw him over a bridge, right? He wasn't killed. The difference is that we have this movement now. That's what I mean, of reaction. And there is always somebody filming. So they say he resisted, he's a drug dealer, he da 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 da. He was nothing like that, right? But then we have the proof because a lot of people filming. Can you see what I mean? So this creates like a movement in a way that is over all the peripheries of Brazil. Of this is not fair, We have the right to cry. It's not slavery. It's not dictatorship, right? And filming is the films are making us. Nothing happens because in this case in particular, our governor is a Bolsonarista, right? It's a extreme right guy, so he doesn't end up. So, did I answer you?
No. I think the question is the impunity, the fact that the military
Yeah.
were punished. They never felt that there was any accountability, and therefore they can
Yeah.
continue carrying out the same kind of violations of human rights, the democratic rights, because nothing would happen to them. Because nothing
Yes,
happened when they
exactly.
murdered,
Yes,
disappeared people like your father,
yes,
a politician, on
yeah,
ridiculous charges of
yeah.
accusations that he was involved in perhaps bringing messages
No,
from
he did. He brought letters from exiled people to their family. That's what he did. He
right.
did.
And they had created out of that a whole notion that he was part of a big conspiracy and was dangerous, etc. And it knew information that he didn't know. So it was a very tragic.
Not
So,
even my mother, not even my sister who were arrested, right? And the film talk shows that, okay?
so what is the for human rights activists like yourself who's been involved in this movement for many, many years? What needs to be done? What do we need to do? People who are concerned about Brazil, people in Brazil, people outside of Brazil, what more do we need to do to push for a greater democracy in the country? What's the agenda that you think we need to establish for the future?
One of them is to change the amnesty law, which is right. This is first off um, uh, on the list. If with that kind of amnesty law going on, we cannot investigate, right? A lot of things, right? The generation who tortured, as my father's generation who were tortured, my father was an older guy. I mean, the mean age of people who were tortured, but in prison was very young. It's between 20 and 25, right? My father was the old guy, right? He had been a politician, was casado, how do you call
He
it?
lost his political rights. He was
Right,
expelled
in
from Congress.
64 and was not in politics anymore. He was working very happily as an engineering. This is the first part of the story you see, right? With the family, he was happy to be, but he was solidary. He would help people, especially young people who were like desperate to have food or something to survive in the clandestine, right? This kind of solidarity. He and his generation did it a lot of it, right? But anyway, if we do not change the amnesty law, we cannot finish the work of memory, truth, and justice that we need to do, and we can't do it yet, right? The other thing that the movie, and this is very strong because you know some of the characters you that I'm not naming them, but people who you had know and have interviewed who were in prison and torture in the 70s, right? Very young people of our generation that you know, right? The other thing is that people, for example, people that I know very well, good friends. Last day we went for a drink. This livre da USP, Alexandre Vanucchi Leme, the directory and group, right? We always have a pizza at the end of the year to see everybody. My generation, people from 67, 65 to 75-year-olds. I'm 71, right? And even if I don't appear, because I follow my mother, good reads, right? I have the genes of my mother. She didn't show also. But anyway, um, we went and then we took him home, and I said, and he said the film is very very strong to me, very because took me back to that kind of scenario of the boycott, right?
Because you
And
mean the
then
political police that arrested and tortured people, right?
yes, the most horrible place where you could be arrested. And then I was in front of the car, my husband here, he's here, and then he began to talk about scenes of torture, scenes of the saw one of his friends and leaders dying in front of him, destroyed, right? That and I decided that I wouldn't look at him because my impression is like a psychoanalysis session. I needed to be here, but not looking at his eyes because we lived together. We have a very close friendship, And he never told me what happened in the prison when he came back to the prison, from the prison. Never. And finally, he decided, began to talk about the experience, talk about his feelings, talk about how it was to see what he saw. And he says, the film is perfect. The film it doesn't show any torture, but he shows elements, signs of what is happening there, cry of
Pride,
people being
yeah.
tortured, which was really enough for put you in there, put me back there without seeing anybody being tortured, right? And it's taking me back to the scene, and he began to tell the story. And then he spoke for 20, 25 minutes, things that we never could hear for anybody who came back from prison at those times. Nobody. Everybody came back destroyed. We took care of them, we give food, but nobody would say a word. The silence was very, very, very important as a reaction, a collective reaction, right? And what is going on as the person, the worker that I told about her family and the uncle and this friend these scenes are being told. And if you go to TikTok and Instagram, you have a lot of young people. Young people is going together to see the film and then discussing the film. Young people, I mean, the generation be under 25, 15 to 25, very young people, right? Discover same stories in the family and begin to talk. My grandmother, my grandmother, my uncle, they're making speeches on TikTok and telling the stories and so on. So this is, I think it is a synchronicity of things. Does it make any sense?
Oh, sure.
That with the Bolsonaro, the legacy of Bolsonaro government, which is a lot, the fascist policy, police, and that takes the poor, not more not anymore the middle class, white middle classes we are, and most of the people who the guerrilleiros were, right, white middle class resisting the dictatorship. You see, I see. This is I don't know. I think there is a synchronical events, many events going on that I don't know. Let's see what happens next,
Well, I
right?
think those of us who have been working for many years in solidarity with Brazil internationally, all of us are going to be very excited to see the film as it's distributed internationally, and also hoping that it's nominated for Best Foreign Film and wins the Oscar, because that means that millions and millions of people will see the film and learn about Brazil, learn about the period, and that can, I think, also help the process of expanding democracy and understanding the past. Because if you don't understand the past, you tend
You
to.
cannot construct a better future. Yeah. And I think democracy is a theme, not only in Brazil. The fight, the resistance and the fight for democracy is a theme in the US, I think. The police violence is a theme. I saw there many, you have a history of these same kind of police, right? It's a theme in Europe. It's a theme in the Middle East. In the theme in Latin, all over Latin America. So democracy and dictatorship, the ameaça, how do I say,
Fred?
the adherence of so many people to fascism, killing, the life of children and women doesn't count anymore, of old people. I mean, this kind of ethics, it's not ethics anymore, right? The dehumanizing of part of humanity so you can kill them and disappear with them. It's not only in Brazil. So I don't think we don't expect the Oscar. I mean, we meaning my family and the family we got to be family with, which are the filmmakers and the people who are acting our characters, because it's a character. Remember, there, it's not me there. It's a character about constructed in a script about me with some input, with a lot of input, but it's not me, for example, right? It's like me, but it's a good, very good actor, actress, right? They're very good. But I mean, this movement the directors, the director, the script writers who got the first a prize in Venice, a festival. That's when this frenzy began, right? And they are very good. The script is like perfect, right? How did they make because the book is much larger than the film, but they chose the right path to tell the story, right? And I think it's quite more universal than our own family history, right?
Vera, I want to thank you so much for having joined us today on Brazil Unfiltered. This was a wonderful interview, and I know that our listeners in the United States and in Europe are all anxiously waiting for the release of the film I'm Still Here, so they can follow this story themselves and identify with the characters and understand it. Thank you so much for coming to Brazil Unfiltered.
I thank you very much for having me here. I love your program. I love your channel. I follow you, you know that, right? And it was a pleasure to talk to you again. You are a good historian of our dictatorship and our resistance stories, right?
Thank you.
Wonderful book. You should read it.
Thank you so much. Well, I hope you enjoy the interview. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like the video. And if you've not yet subscribed, please do so. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps other people find the program. Have a great week. Until next time, até a próxima.